At 70 years old, I find myself living life at a much slower, quieter pace. And not because I have to, but because I've chosen to. There was a time when I was always surrounded by people, family gatherings, community events, helping others, trying to be everywhere at once. I used to think that being social, staying busy, and constantly saying yes was the secret to a full life. But something changed. These days I've become more selective. I avoid people more than I ever used to. Not because I'm bitter or lonely, but because I've come to value my peace more than constant interaction. And I've learned something important. There's strength in choosing solitude. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, maybe you've started to feel the same way. Maybe you've stepped back from certain relationships. Maybe you've grown tired of noise, of surface conversations, of people who only take. This isn't a sign of weakness, it's wisdom. In this video, I'm sharing 7 powerful realizations that have shaped the way I live, love, and protect my time after 70. These lessons aren't about giving up on people. They're about coming home to yourself. If this message touches something inside you, please like this video, subscribe to Golden Minds, and leave a comment with one if any of these truths resonate with your journey. Let's explore this new chapter together, with honesty, with courage, and with peace. 1. Time feels more precious than ever. After years of rushing, showing up for everyone, and constantly filling my days with activity, I've come to realize something that hits harder with each passing year. Time is no longer a blur, it's a treasure. In my younger days, I treated time like loose change. I spent it without much thought, believing there would always be more. More days to fix things, more chances to reconnect, more time to chase dreams I kept putting off. I don't regret the life I lived, but I do wish I'd understood sooner just how sacred a single day can be. At 70, that perspective shifts in the most unexpected ways. Now, time shows itself in the stillness of early mornings, when I hold a warm cup of coffee and watch the sunlight stretch across the porch. It whispers to me during long walks, when my legs move slower, but my thoughts move deeper. It lingers in the laughter of my grandchildren and the soft silence of evenings spent alone, reflecting on decades filled with both triumph and trial. I no longer fill my schedule just to feel useful or included. I don't say yes to things that drain me. I've learned to pause, to protect the spaces in my life that bring peace instead of noise. Because here's the truth. We don't run out of time all at once. It slips away quietly, moment by moment. These days, I choose quality over quantity in everything. Fewer gatherings, but more meaningful ones. Shorter conversations, but deeper ones. Less busyness, more presence. Time now feels like a garden that I tend gently, not a race I'm trying to win. And this awareness hasn't made me afraid. It's made me intentional. I no longer fear the ticking clock. Instead, I honor it by living fully in the minutes I have. So if you're feeling the same shift, know this. It's not a loss. It's a gift. One that invites you to slow down, be deliberate, and finally live the life that feels right to you. 2. Not all relationships are meant to last, and that's a gift. As I've become more intentional with how I spend my time, I've also become more aware of who I spend it with. And that awareness has brought one of the hardest, yet most liberating truths I've learned at this stage in life. Not every relationship is meant to go the distance. And that's not a failure. It's simply part of the journey. When I was younger, I believed that holding on was the mark of love. I worked hard to keep every friendship, to stay close with distant relatives, to say yes, even when I was tired, just to avoid letting someone down. I was the one who remembered birthdays, sent the check-in messages, and made the plans. But over the years, I noticed something. Some people didn't show up in return. Some friendships grew quiet, others became one-sided, and a few even left me feeling more alone than being alone ever did. At first, I blamed myself. Was I not doing enough? Did I change too much? But eventually, I realized the truth. People grow in different directions, and that's okay. Some relationships are here for a season. They teach us, love us, or challenge us for a time, and then life gently moves us on. Others are rooted so deeply that even silence can't shake them. I've learned to cherish both without clinging. Letting go doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've started honoring your energy and recognizing when a connection no longer brings peace. These days, I choose to nurture the relationships that feel mutual, where I can be fully myself without shrinking or pretending. I seek depth over history, presence over obligation. If you've lost touch with someone you once held close, don't carry guilt. Some good things fade naturally. Appreciate what they were and allow space for what's meant to remain. This chapter of life is not about maintaining every connection. It's about protecting the ones that still feel alive. And in doing so, I've found my circle may be smaller, but it's never felt more sincere. 3. Solitude isn't loneliness. After learning to let go of relationships that no longer felt true, I found myself with more time alone than ever before. At first, I wasn't sure what to do with that space. The quiet was loud. The phone didn't ring as often. The calendar, once filled with visits and obligations, was mostly clear. In my younger years, I would have called that loneliness. I would have rushed to fill the silence, afraid it meant something was wrong. But now at 70, I see it differently. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's presence, it's peace. I think of mornings now, how I sit by the window with a warm cup of tea and just listen to the birds, to the breeze, to my own thoughts which used to be drowned out by other people's voices. There's a stillness I never knew I needed. Solitude has become the space where I reconnect with myself, where I remember who I am outside of expectations, outside of titles, outside of who I was to everyone else. It's also where healing happens. There are things you can only understand when you're quiet long enough to hear them. Old regrets, tender memories, even unresolved grief. They all have room to rise in solitude, and with time, they soften. That's not to say I don't still enjoy company. I treasure the laughter of my grandchildren, the occasional long chat with an old friend, the warm hug of someone who truly sees me. But I no longer need constant connection to feel complete. I choose it when it feels right, and when I don't, I rest in the knowing that being alone is not the same as being forgotten. Solitude has taught me to value myself, not for how many people I'm around, but for how deeply I've come to know and accept who I am. And in that quiet acceptance, I found a kind of joy I never expected. Simple, grounding, and deeply my own. 4. Trusting wisely, not widely. Spending more time in solitude gave me a chance to reflect, not just on the past, but on the people I've shared my journey with. And one truth quietly surfaced over and over again. Trust isn't something I offer freely anymore. Not because I'm bitter or closed off or guarded beyond reason, but because trust is sacred, and I've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. When I was younger, I gave trust easily. I believed in people's words. I took loyalty for granted. If someone called me a friend, I welcomed them wholeheartedly. I assumed good intentions. And in many cases, that openness led to deep, meaningful relationships. But it also left me exposed. There were moments I'll never forget. A friend who quietly disappeared when I needed them most. A relative who only reached out when they wanted something. A person I loved who used my kindness as currency for their convenience. Each time I gave a little less. Not because I wanted to become cold, but because I finally understood. Trust is not just about believing in others. It's about believing in yourself enough to protect your peace. Now I trust slowly, gently. I watch how people show up over time. I listen not just to what they say, but how they act when things get quiet or inconvenient. And I no longer feel guilty for needing proof that someone's presence is genuine. That shift has brought clarity. Today, I trust my instincts more than empty promises. I trust patterns over apologies. And most of all, I trust that it's okay to keep certain doors closed, even if others don't understand why. This doesn't mean I've built walls around my heart. I've simply created gates, ones that open carefully and close firmly when needed. Because as we age, trust becomes less about quantity and more about depth. A few honest connections are worth far more than a crowd of question marks. And in learning to trust wisely, I've found a quieter kind of safety, one rooted not in control, but in self-respect. 5. Why I avoid people. Now, learning to trust more carefully taught me something else, something that surprised even me. I've started avoiding people, and I'm not ashamed of it. Now, I don't mean I've shut myself away or stopped caring about others. Not at all. I still enjoy the company of those who uplift me, who meet me with kindness and respect. But over time, I've come to understand that peace is fragile, and not everyone protects it the way I do. For much of my life, I showed up for everyone. I was the dependable one, the helper, the listener. I gave my time, my energy, and my heart, often without even pausing to ask myself, is this serving me too? I stayed in friendships where I felt invisible. I attended events that left me emotionally drained. I gave and gave, thinking that was what being a good person meant. But the truth is, I was slowly disappearing in the process. At 70, I see things more clearly. Now I avoid people who constantly complain but never change. I step back from those who never ask how I'm doing, but always have something to unload. I've stopped making space for relationships that feel one-sided, draining, or performative. Avoiding people doesn't mean I've lost faith in humanity. It means I've learned to prioritize emotional safety, to say no without guilt, to choose rest over forced interactions, and to honor the limited time and energy I have left. I used to feel bad for pulling away. I worried I might seem distant or unkind. But now I realize that protecting my peace isn't rude. It's responsible. I haven't closed the door on connection. I've simply become more mindful about who I let through it. And in doing so, I've found a sense of calm I never knew I was missing. Life no longer feels like something I have to keep up with. It feels like something I'm finally allowed to enjoy. So if you've found yourself avoiding certain people lately, don't see it as selfish. See it as a sign that your soul is asking for more quiet, more truth, and more care. That's not giving up on others. That's finally showing up for yourself. 6. The noise outside isn't stronger than the peace within. As I've stepped away from people who disrupt my peace, I've also grown more aware of something else. The world around me feels louder than it used to. Not just the physical noise, but the emotional noise. The constant stream of opinions, updates, headlines, and expectations. It's like everyone's always shouting, and no one's really listening. There was a time I tried to keep up. I had the news on constantly. I scrolled through social media to stay connected. I thought being informed meant being engaged, but all it really did was leave me anxious and overstimulated. There was always something urgent, something upsetting, something demanding a reaction, and slowly I started asking myself, what is all this noise doing to me? So I turned it off. Not entirely, I still care about the world, but I've learned to filter, to step back when the noise becomes too much and return to the things that ground me. A quiet walk, a good book, my garden, the laughter of a grandchild, a cup of tea enjoyed without multitasking. I've come to see that peace isn't something you stumble upon, it's something you protect. And the more I tune out the chaos outside, the more clearly I hear the calm within. These days, I'm not chasing trends or trying to keep up. I'm not worried about being seen or staying relevant. I'm focused on being present, being steady, being kind to myself and those who matter. The world may move fast, but I don't have to. I don't need to match its speed or volume. I found something quieter and far more valuable inside myself, and I refuse to let the noise take it away. So if the world ever feels too loud for you too, step back, breathe deep, and remember, you don't have to join the noise to feel alive. Sometimes the softest life is the one most deeply lived. 7. Embracing this chapter at 70. As I let go of the noise and lean into stillness, I find myself settling into this stage of life with a deeper sense of purpose than I ever expected. Not urgency, not striving, just acceptance. And with that comes a kind of freedom that's hard to describe until you feel it for yourself. Turning 70 has a way of simplifying things. It's not that I don't still dream or grow, I do, but the motivation has shifted. I'm no longer chasing milestones to prove my worth. I'm not trying to keep pace with anyone else's expectations. I've finally stopped running, and in that quiet, I've begun to arrive, to truly embrace where I am. This chapter isn't about endings, it's about coming home to yourself. I spend more time now reflecting, not in sadness, but in gratitude. I look back on mistakes with gentler eyes. I remember old joys with a heart that feels both full and ready for more. I've come to see my past not as a weight to carry, but as a garden I've tended. Some weeds, some wildflowers, but all part of the same story. And the beauty is, the story isn't over. There are still new pages to turn, still quiet mornings to enjoy, still people to love, and little moments to treasure. The light that fills my days now is softer, but it's no less bright. I say no more often now, but with peace, not guilt. I say yes only when it aligns with who I've become, not who I used to be. I honor the things that bring me joy and release the things that don't. At 70, I've learned that embracing this chapter isn't about shrinking. It's about expanding in quieter, richer ways. It's about living on your own terms without apology. So if you're here too, navigating this stage with questions, reflections, or quiet courage, know this: you're not behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be. This chapter is yours to write. Fill it with meaning, however that looks for you, and trust that the peace you're choosing now is the reward you spent decades earning. Looking back on everything I've shared, one truth continues to rise above the rest. Peace is worth protecting. At 70, life doesn't feel rushed anymore. It feels meaningful. Every decision I make, who I spend time with, what I give my energy to, where I place my trust, is guided by a quiet question. Does this bring me closer to peace or pull me away from it? Time has taught me to value depth over noise, solitude over obligation, real connection over routine, and most of all, it's taught me that it's okay to change. It's okay to grow softer, slower, and more selective. Avoiding people isn't a rejection of others. It's a return to myself. If you find yourself on a similar path, you're not alone. Many of us reach this stage of life with more clarity, more courage, and more desire to live authentically. And while it may look like we're stepping back from the world, what we're really doing is stepping into a life that finally feels true. So here's to this chapter, one of reflection, simplicity, and strength. One where we stop trying to prove and start learning to just be. If these words resonated with you, I'd love to know. Leave a 1 in the comments and let me know which part spoke to your heart. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Golden Minds, and join our growing circle of thoughtful, wholehearted souls. Let's keep choosing peace. One day, one decision, one breath at a time.